Welcome back to the Glen Alex Show. I am your host, Glen Alex, and each episode of the Glen Alex Show focuses on a different aspect of health because I believe in total health, and I am on a mission to help as many people as I can be joyful, connected, confident, and complete the life experience we call WELLTH, WELLTH, which is health plus other riches. So just think about it for a moment. If more of us were living in total health on the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels, there would be world peace. The world would be safe and loving for everyone. So please join us on this path and stay tuned for this episode of the Glen Alex Show, the 2023 Positive Change Podcast Award winner, because it's on a different level of diversity.
Welcome to the Glen Alex Show, where your health matters, set your mind, let it flow. Joyful, connected, confident, complete. Let Glen Alex help you back on your feet. The Glen Alex Show.
So please help me welcome my guest, Katherine McCord. Hi, Katherine.
Hi, Glenn. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here with you.
Oh, I appreciate you making time. Thank you. And I'm ready to learn from you.
I hope I have something intelligent to teach. I am here to help. What do you need?
Okay. Let's start with you just taking a minute to tell us who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So my name is Katherine McCord. I historically run a people operations consulting business. So that's the human side of HR.
Okay.
And I have a very innovative and inclusive focus, always have. I have developed over the years a specialty in neurodiversity. So I now travel the world speaking about neurodiversity, inclusion, kind of the superpowers of neurodiversity, as well as I recently founded an organization that's going to be all about providing resources and elevating neurodiversity as well. And so, again, people operations, international speaker on topics of HR, innovation, and neurodiversity. And then now, because I had not quite enough to do in my life, I founded a not-for-profit organization for neurodiversity as well. So that's me.
Okay, awesome. So define neurodiversity. I mentioned in the intro that it's a different level, a higher level of diversity. So explain what that is.
So neurodiversity was originally a term coined by Australian sociologist Judy Singer, and she used it to mean to sort of bring out the idea that different is not a deficit. In other words, the differences in human neuro pathways is a great thing. It's not bad. Since then, the term has evolved somewhat, though, to specifically mean a difference in how a medically visible and or diagnosable difference in how the brain processes. So that's everything from cerebral palsy and traumatic brain injury all the way over to ADHD, anxiety disorder, dissociative identity disorder, autism, etc. And so it's a very broad spectrum. It's about the current estimated diagnosed population is about 20% of the world's population. And then the estimated actual total is around 30% because there's a lot of undiagnosed people out there. And the cool thing is that while there is definitely disability associated with this community, the science has now finally caught up to what the rest of us already knew and is showing the superpowers and the amazing characteristics that specifically come out of neurodiversity, like 3D model thinking, innovation, creativity, strong empathy, brutal honesty, or power honesty, as some people in the community call it, hyper analytics, etc. And these are again scientifically proven benefits. So it's a really cool community. It is.
Okay. So those who are neurodiverse, they have medical conditions that their brain processes information differently, as well as cognitive and emotional and psychological
It
diagnoses.
depends on the individual.
Okay.
So it's all the spectrum, right? So it kind of like how now instead of just saying autism, we say autism spectrum.
Right.
So it's all on a spectrum. So everybody, from one end to the other, as long as there's a difference in how your neural pathways function, then you would be considered neurodiverse. And some of these variances are not yet diagnosable, but you can
Okay.
definitely see them and tell that they're there. And so people go, well, I feel like I'm neurodiverse, but don't have a diagnosis. That's okay. You probably are. If your brain works a little bit differently from everybody else. And that's all that means, is that your neural pathways function a little bit differently. So it can be
Okay.
a mental health diagnosis. It can be a physical diagnosis like cerebral palsy or traumatic brain injury. But as long as it affects the neural pathways, then that would be considered neurodiverse.
Interesting. I read that actor Anthony Hopkins said that while he was growing up, he felt so different and he was sure he had some kind of undiagnosed learning disability until he happened upon acting and
Mhm.
found his way. I didn't know that about him until I read it recently.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. So many famous Maya Angelou, Dan Aykroyd, Jessica Alba, Gina Davis. There's Daryl Hannah. There are so many people. Simone Biles, that one the oh God, how many gold
Olympian,
medals does she have? Like I can't even count how many gold medals.
123.
Yeah, right. 1,050. We don't know, but however many gold medals she has. But she, but she is neurodiverse too, and is very public about it, and it's beautiful. So yeah, there's all these amazing people, and you have the inventors and the entrepreneurs. So Albert Einstein, Mozart, um, uh, Alan Turing, all these different wonderful, amazing humans that have advanced our world and society. They all fell under the neurodiverse spectrum.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, I read in your bio that you are neurodiverse as well. What
Yeah,
makes you
I am.
neurodiverse?
So I have multiple diagnoses. Um, the main ones that I discuss are I do have a seizure disorder, so that puts me on the physical side of the spectrum,
Okay.
and then I also have bipolar one and obsessive compulsive disorder. Those are the three that
Okay.
I discuss the most, and that are the most prevalent. And it's funny too because people will say, "Oh, aren't we all a little bit obsessive compulsive?" I said, "No.
No.
If you think that, then you don't understand what it is. Compulsive means like a compulsion. You must do it. It's a thing that you absolutely must do. Not I'm a little absent-minded or not I like things in a certain order. It's this way or I melt down. You know,
Yes.
that's kind of the difference. And that came about when I was very small. Actually, my mother first noticed it when I was about 3 or 4 years old.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. And
born with
so
it.
when at what point did you uh I don't know, begin to manage your
That's a great
neurodiversity?
That's a great question. Actually, it started when my mother discovered it. So my parents are phenomenal human beings, and they had a very intentional parenting style. And they took a look at this child who had this very different brain from other children her own age, and decided, okay, we're going to steer into this, and we're going to help her learn to work with herself, not
Okay.
against herself. You
Okay.
know, and so they took me on a wonderful journey of exploring the whys and having me explain to them what was happening inside of me when these different things would
Mm,
happen, and teaching me how to
okay.
pay attention to myself. And then fast forward, I had the privilege of, and it took a few tries to get a wonderful mental health professional who was a psychologist and who really helped me when the bipolar surfaced, who really helped me learn to map myself very well and take care of myself because I refused to use medication. The medication at the time, it has since changed, but the medication at the time was not very healthy. It was not a very good choice. And I'd known people that had become addicted to it, people that had very unhealthy manifestations from it. So I
Okay.
didn't want that, but I knew the importance of managing it. I understood that that was vital, right? So again, back to the self-mapping and understanding and knowing the chemicals and how to do grounding work and all this. So I would say officially my journey started at about 3 or 4 years old when my parents noticed it, but more cognitively on my end would be at about 15, 16 years old. Um, it was fascinating. It was an interesting journey. And because of that, I now have this really strong inner dialogue with my body, which has helped me
Hmm.
with my medical issues, and has
Okay.
made me a much more effective executive and founder over the years.
Okay, that's amazing. And kudos to your parents for being open
Yes.
to your differences and
Yeah.
helping guide you through them.
100%. Yeah, I give so much credit to them and the very healthy and loving response that they had to the state that I'm in now.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think it's also very important on your part to be open and accepting of your own differences and learning to manage them. A lot of um, clients that I deal with adults who are experiencing anxiety and depression, and um, they're so resistant. Some of them are so resistant to accepting that they just think and experience their emotions differently than their family did.
Yeah.
And they will beat themselves up for it instead of learning to, as they say in sports, play within yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I see so much of that in the work that I do. And we've been taught that we're wrong for being this way, right? That's just what's been imparted to us. You're defective. You're not
Hmm.
correct in how you are. But kind of the cool thing is that now we're getting a lot more science around all of this. And so a lot of these diversities, again, there's positives, the scientific community, and you can look up on like National Library of Medicine, the National Institute of Health, Harvard, Hewlett Packard's even done some work around this, about the benefits of these types of conditions, diagnoses, however you want to say it. Um, Diversities is the word I like to use. And there are a lot of upsides to them. And so, yes, there's a disability. Yes, there's a frustrating aspect, but then there are upsides as well. And so, understanding the balance of yourself and what all you have to offer, and even where there is disability or something is very frustrating. For instance, anxiety, like you said, depression. These
Hmm.
things just feel very negative, right? And
Yeah.
one of the most important lessons that I ever learned is that you're the boss of your mind, not the other way around.
Yes.
And and so hearing and you can't help what your body naturally wants to do. You can't control the natural uh, process, but what you can do is teach your body its response is incorrect. In other words, I don't. This is not the response that I need. So with my depressive cycles and my bipolar, one of the things that I do is when I wake up and I realize that that's where I'm at, right? Like, oh boy, here we go, another depressive cycle. Well, my body is releasing too much of the incorrect hormones, right? It's just gone awry. We've just run amok. Is what's happened. And and so I can just tell my body, I can walk myself through it and I can do some grounding exercises and say, I am loved. Here are the people that love me. I have food. I have
Mm,
safety. And
okay.
I walk myself through it, and my body starts to feel safer as I
Okay.
do this. And my body starts to go, oh, okay, we're all right.
Okay.
This is okay, right? And then I do things that specifically release the happier chemicals. So,
Mm,
specifically, oxytocin is extremely helpful for me, and it's different for different people. So, I will do things to connect to other humans because that releases that oxytocin. Even podcasting, that sounds so funny, but doing shows such as this releases that oxytocin and really helps to elevate the correct chemicals in my body. Doing education classes, connecting with somebody I like on LinkedIn, the right music for me, Rachmaninoff, just saying, one of my favorites. But releasing the proper chemicals. So taking your body through the safety and helping your body to understand that you're okay, and eating properly also has a lot to do with
mhm.
it. And then doing things to release the better chemicals that will help balance your body out makes all the difference. So you can tell your body, no, thank you. We're not going to be doing this today.
Right.
we're gonna
Right.
we're gonna fix it. And it may not go completely away. My depression doesn't 100% go away, but I get into a much healthier space. I'm productive. I'm able to feel some relaxation around it.
It doesn't stop you.
No, it
It
doesn't.
doesn't debilitate you.
No. And that's what you can do. You can move yourself out of debilitation into a healthy space. And now, as silly as it may sound to some people, I'm comfortable in my depression. It does not affect me negatively in terms of my long-term mental state. It very minimally affects my physical health anymore. I'm comfortable in that state because I've learned how to properly manage it. And the same thing on the mania cycle as well.
Okay, okay. Now, how does responding in curiosity help you manage your
Oh,
diversities?
you know what's interesting? I think it helps with everything. When I learned to do this, which was relatively recent, shamefully recent in life, because now that I do it, it just seems like the most obvious thing in the world. But so many people don't do it. So responding in curiosity, for anybody that wants to know what we're discussing, is when you break that natural ego mechanism that all of us have that's there to defend us. Our brain wants to be correct, it wants to be right. And so it's not ego as we typically think of it as, I'm smarter than you.
Macho. Yeah.
That's not it. That's not it. The ego mechanism, the ego defense is there to tell your brain that it's correct so that your brain can be calm. Okay, this is meant to keep you on a plateau. But the problem is that when we hear something that's conflicting with that, we also respond with that. And
Hmm.
we don't actually listen and learn and grow, right?
Right.
And so instead of that, which releases, actually you become addicted to that process, which I learned, which is fascinating. It releases adrenaline and dopamine. We're actually addicted to our ego. Like, how sad is that as a human race? We are quite literally addicted to it. But again, you could pivot that by releasing serotonin and oxytocin through a curiosity response. So whenever you feel that, like, oh, I got to defend my position, or I got to, disagree with this person immediately right off the bat, instead of that, and this is the same thing when you're hearing about somebody else's diversity, right? So this is how it kind of plays into that aspect.
Okay.
You respond, you do a quick grounding and just go, I'm safe. Like, I have
Mm.
food, I am safe. I'm okay. Just a real quick breath and then respond with a question. So
Okay.
something, but can you tell me a little bit more about that? Can you elaborate on that, please? Can you tell me, how you learned this? Whatever it is that's coming out, or if it's somebody talking to you about a diversity, or somebody not understanding your diversity, which is quite often the case with mine. I have some kind of bizarre diversities, especially on the medical side. So communicating about those to people can leave them very puzzled. Uh, they'll say something maybe that's not correct, or it's a little bit insulting, and it's okay. And I just look at them and say, okay, so what prompted you to ask that? Or what prompted you to say
Mm.
that?
Okay.
And I've talked to them a little bit about it and helped them to understand. And when you respond that way, both sides release that proper chemical, and then you connect to each other, and it's a positive, productive conversation as
Yes.
opposed to a combative
Okay.
conversation. So yeah,
Okay.
that's how it fits in.
Okay. I'm really glad you mentioned that about the ego, because what I find is that where humans tend to be more interested in confirming what they already believe rather than learning. And learning means you suspend your beliefs to open up to new information. So
Yes.
I like the idea of responding curiously,
Mhm.
because
It changes your
it's
life.
playful, it's light,
Mhm.
and it's openness. So I like that a
It is.
lot.
It is. And finding, it's so interesting. And one of the coolest things that you find with curiosity is that you find so much mission alignment,
Hmm.
in other humans. And so recently, I just a few days ago, actually, I was giving a talk, and I said, okay, everybody, I'm going to bring up a controversial subject. And they're like, everybody like clenched up, right? And I said the subject. And I said, but what's interesting is I'm going to present both sides to you. This side is worried about children's health when it comes to medications and all this type of thing that may be imparted onto them. This side is worried about the children's mental health and suicide. So what
Mm.
I'm hearing is that both sides are love children and are concerned about children, want to help children. I said, and so both sides have the same mission. And everybody's eyes got so big and jaws dropped. And one lady goes, oh my gosh, I never realized this. I said, yeah. I said, so now have that conversation, talk to each other, but do it in curiosity and ask questions
Okay.
and start developing solutions, right? And that's kind of the beauty of it, right? And when you realize that mission alignment, because if people had been responding in curiosity, nobody in that room would have been shocked by this
Right.
revelation about this subject, right? And so when we respond in curiosity, that's what it allows us to find, is the commonality. And once that's there, you can figure out the rest around it, right? And so to your point in your beautiful intro, you know, this is how we come together, and this is how we form true wellness, true wealth,
Hmm.
WELL, you know,
Yes.
and and coming together to have these conversations is how you do it and grow together. So yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay. It is beautiful. So would you say that with this mission alignment, that just by responding in curiosity, we can minimize or maybe even eliminate that us versus them mentality?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Whenever, and I've had people asking, well, what if I want to be curious and they don't? I said, force it. Just keep asking questions till they can't help but answer you. And just keep engaging them and learning more about them until they calm down and come out of the aggressive headspace and then
Okay.
proceed. Now, some people just won't. It's once in a blue moon you find someone that just really won't participate. But typically, if you just really take your time and focus on them first and get it going, and yeah, it just deflates all of that. It takes it all away. I've had the pleasure of sitting in a room of people, I mean, just opposite points of view of mine, just complete opposite, and coming to this, okay, and finding the commonality, finding the mission through curiosity, and then having a beautiful discussion and kind of figuring out next steps collectively,
Hmm.
and even this is something I feel like even with issues that are very tough right now, both sides are being very stubborn in our society, and so both sides, even the ones that I ethically align with, I feel are wrong, and they're approaching it incorrectly and ineffectively because they're not including others and they're not welcoming them to the table to discuss. And that is very literally the point of inclusion. So we can't be exclusive if we're inclusive, right?
Right.
That just doesn't jive. And we're forgetting to bring other people into the discussion.
Oh my goodness, that speaks to me on a level I can't describe, because while I'm listening to all of this stuff going on in society and in the world, we ignore that most people have a need to be understood,
Mhm.
have a need to be heard.
Yeah,
And by invalidating that, then we're not even close to being inclusive or
exactly.
accepting of their diversity.
100%. And inclusion is for literally everybody. Nobody's left out of that. It's
Right.
it's everyone. And so that means that everyone needs to be part of the conversation. That's just it. We need to hear people out, learn to hear what they're really saying, not just the words, but hear the humanity behind
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I often realize that years of, finding other humans fascinating and just kind of studying them, I've come to realize that people often don't argue the point that's actually on their heart. But if you listen, you'll catch it.
You'll catch it.
There'll be a little glimpse of what it really is that's hurting them. And and when you do that, again, back to the connection, right? You can go, okay, all right, you're feeling that pain. All right, let's talk about that. Let's circle back to it, right? And there is a time and place. I don't want to discredit that. There is a time and place to look at somebody and go, okay, you're being harmful. Stop. Like
Oh,
just to put that hard stop on it.
absolutely.
But then we can circle back later. But in the moment, sometimes we got to be whoa.
Whoa.
No, thank you to this.
Oh, I get that too. I totally get that too. Now, let's talk a little bit about mental health in the workplace.
Yes.
How do you help companies be inclusive and be open to neurodiversities?
That's a good question. So one of the first things that I start working with companies on is psychological safety and vulnerability,
Mm.
how to start with that, how to use your own vulnerability to help others feel safe, how to create true psychological safety, which means not only listening, but implementing the feedback that actually matters. If you just listen but don't do anything, you didn't earn any trust. So it's actually doing something with it. What a concept. And then um, building in flexibility. That's really a big piece of it that a lot of people miss too, is building in flexibility. If everything is really concrete, you're automatically not inclusive, because so many people have so many different needs. So just being flexible, how to do that without creating stress for everybody that's already there, and making accommodations into standard options. We have this ridiculous notion that everything just needs to be complicated in the workplace. I don't know who came up with all of this, but I need to like hunt them down. Like have a time machine, hunt them down, and have a serious conversation with them. Yeah, maybe spray them. Like I have a like no water bottle for my cats. Like maybe spray them with that a little bit. Like what were you thinking? Come on now. And so making it just standard options, because when people can work in a way that's natural to them, and this has been proven time and time again. One of the best examples was by Hewlett Packard and their neurodiversity cultivation program, which has since been expanded into other organizations. They prove that when you support people working naturally, all people working in ways that are natural to them, then they are more productive. Their exact result was 33% more productive.
Wow.
It's huge, right?
Yeah.
They're happier, they're healthier, they're more innovative. Then customers get better support, and they're happier. And then the best thing of all of business happens. According to Boston Consulting Group, your profits go up about 19%.
Oh,
what's better than that? So make accommodation standard, help everybody to work in ways that are natural for them. And then just go back and redesigning things that just don't make sense. Like just going back and one of the things I always point out to them, they'll go, "Oh yeah, we designed this with inclusion in mind." I said, "Who all designed this?" "Oh, the three of us sitting here in this room." So 3 people designed something that hundreds or thousands of people are going to use. Hear that, So one thing I always tell people is bring people to the table from each marginalized group when you're designing something, especially a process, a technology. For gosh sakes, with your technology, please bring in different people, and just really design things. Make sure that they're making sense. Actually go back and check your work. I can't tell you how many companies I go look at their application process and it asks the diversity questions 3 or 4 times. I'm like, do you know how bad that looks to a candidate that you ask them what race they are 3 times, or what disability they have 4 times? Like, it's very weird. Stop doing, and they just didn't know it was there that many times. That, somebody just clicked a button, didn't realize, and there it is. And so, just going back and double checking your work. So thoroughness, flexibility, making accommodations into standard options, and really building out vulnerability and psychological safety. Those are kind of the main things that you absolutely have to do. And it's actually very easy. We're designed for all of this. Our brains are designed to work this way. So once you get it going right, easy as pie.
Well, unfortunately, there's very little inclusion in decisions that are made for the masses. I mean, you're trying to talk about housing and finances and relationships, and you build this structure based on what 2 or 3 people think to apply with people who think differently. That's nuts.
It doesn't work.
It does not work.
No. Who came up with this?
You need to have a conversation with them too.
I do too. Spray bottle, Moto Kitty bottle for them too. It's just even our politics. Like I just look at this, I'm like, what's happening? This is insanity to me. It's so crazy. I just, I think that, and that's another cool thing. I think with our society today, with the technology that we have, that's amazing, is that we don't need so much, quote, representation anymore, whether it's politics, companies, anything like that. There used to have to be a lot more chiefs, so to speak, a lot more leaders or representatives, because there was no way to communicate in mass, right? That was just not an option.
Right.
So now, why are we still doing it that way when people can just speak up for themselves, and say what they have to say? That just is completely nonsensical to me. So that's, I think that's another aspect that we need to be looking at for inclusion is okay, so let's take away the representation and let's just let people speak for themselves and let's just hear them as they are and just let people, use the technology that we've created in a
Right.
way to be productive in that manner. I think that's kind of one of the next steps.
And allowing people to have their own voice.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like I
Okay.
don't need Congress saying what should be going on with me. I can tell you my dang self. Just give me access to an app. I'll tell you what I think about laws and all these kind of things, and we'll go on with it. You know, it's just and the same thing in a company. Like it always cracks me up. People are going, "Oh yeah, we brought leadership together to ask what their people wanted." I'm like, "Why'd you do that? Just ask the people.
Right.
Why are you asking? I mean,
Right.
they should know also. They should know. Maybe you should test them and make sure that they know. But why are you not just having the people speak for themselves? That's silly."
So is it the same three people making decisions for everybody in every area? They just move
Just the
around a
same
lot.
people. We need to find them. We really do. We need to figure out what they're doing. But it really is true. Like it's just the same people just making these decisions. And it's just why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Just listen to human beings, believe them when they tell you what they need. People really, I've heard this weird notion that like people are going to just make up needs. And I'm like, maybe if they have a mental health concern that causes them to do that, that might happen, but that's
Right.
very, very rare. And most people, the vast, and I'm talking like over 99% of people are going to just tell you their actual
Their actual needs.
what's
Yeah.
actually what's actually going on because that's what behooves them to do, right? So
Right.
just believe them, work with them, you know, keep it simple, be
Yes.
flexible.
And
And
sort it
by the
out.
way, yes, and by the way, the Department of Labor just issued a study that said that 54% of accommodations are free and another huge percentage are very cheap. So why are we making people jump through hoops? Why? It's free. Like there's
Right.
literally no cost to you. So what is your problem? Just do it.
That ego mindset,
That's exactly
because
it.
it's always been done that way.
Yeah. Ooh, that is my number one pet peeve. Like that is I've had so many clients say that to me, and my response to them every single time is, "Well, that is the stupidest reason that there is to do something. So let's find a new one,
Right. And one that works.
and one that works. And if that's still the way we need to do it, cool. But let's have a better reason to still do it that way than
Right.
just that's always the way it's been done. You
Right.
know?
Right.
Ooh,
I know. I know.
such a mind limiting. Ooh.
Well, I know you're a busy person and we can't go on all day, even though we can.
Ah,
I
do.
do want to um, look at using your diversity. A lot of my clients compare themselves to other people. They should be this successful, they should have this, they should be doing that. Please explain.
Yeah. Oh, I this is one of my favorite questions I think I've ever been asked. Really, really and truly, it's just as simple as you will not be successful to your max potential. You will not find your happiness until you're just embracing your strength and your diversity and who you are. Nobody else is you. They didn't have your experience. They don't have your knowledge. They don't have your talents. They don't have your weaknesses. I mean, it's just every human being is completely different. So
Mm-hmm.
just steer into you because when you do, I fought it for years because I was like, man, no, I am the human equivalent of grumpy cat. Like nobody wants that. I gotta fake that. I gotta fake not being that way. Um, and I didn't. And one day something happened and I had to show up exactly as I was because I'd had two seizures and I had to get up on stage and give a speech and I had to use notes
Mm-hmm.
and it was a very different thing. And so I said, you know what? Forget it. This is like, fine. If I have to show up as me, they're going to get all of it. And I did it and I talked about the seizures and I got a huge response and I started doing that more and more. And what happened the more and more, not just on the medical side, but when I just let my mind be and all of these things about myself be, the right humans started coming into my life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the right opportunities. And I started saying no to things that didn't make me happy, which was scary. And I did it anyway. And then the right things would come, like just shortly after that. And it was
Okay.
the most fascinating thing. And so my advice to people is it's going to take some practice because we've all been taught to mask and to like hold in
Hmm.
ourselves, right? But forget all of that. Just, be you. Be you respectfully, though. I just want to put that there, like remember inclusion. So you
Right.
don't,
Don't be
you,
extra.
yeah, don't be extra. Don't be extra. But but be you. Bring that energy. Get those people in your life that are have the energy that they're going where you want to go. They're doing the kind of things you want to do. They support you in your journey, even if they're different. They support you in your journey of doing what you want to do. They are there for you. They will answer the phone. They will answer your message. Find those humans and just start feeding your energy and your missions because that's
Mhm.
when you really come to life. And it's a whole different experience.
Okay. Okay. I hope the audience heard that. Use your diversity.
Yes, use your diversity. Just be weird. It works.
It does work. It does. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for your insights and your wisdom. Now, if you can sum it up into one nugget, what is the takeaway you want the audience to have about neurodiversity?
Difference is not a deficit. Just remember that. In fact,
Okay.
it's a benefit. Science proves it.
Okay. A lot of successful people are different and
That's
neurodiverse.
right.
Yes.
That's right. All the amazing humans in history. Just go back. Just inventors, entrepreneurs, all of them. They're all a bunch of weirdo neurodiverse people. Just let it all out.
Okay.
Because that's when you find your brilliance.
Right. So being different is not a
Not
deficit.
a deficit. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So how can someone connect with you if they have a question or want to learn more about what you do?
Yeah, sure. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always on there. Connect with me, ask questions, whatever you want to do. My professional site is titanmanagementusa.com. And the new site for the Neurodiversity Project is jointheneuroverse.com. And Neuroverse is Neuro, and then it's Verse. So join the
Oh, verse.
neuroverse.org.
Easy for you to say.
I know, right? Not so easy for me to say, apparently.
Well, I really appreciate your time and the information you shared with us and your experiences as well. So thank you again for being on this episode of the Glen Alex Show.
Absolutely. It was absolutely a joy. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Glen Alex Show. We hope you learned something about neurodiversity and will incorporate it in your life so you may live in total health. Please like, subscribe, and share.
Refresh your spirit with a nourishing thought.
Please allow me to leave you with this nourishing thought. Audre Lorde, justice and equality activist, said, "It is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences." You see, being different is not in and of itself a disability, and being unique is not wrong. Many of the adults I work with process information and emotions differently and don't conform to what they were taught should be. So those adults experience anxiety and or depression and struggle with their own uniqueness within their families and their communities. I have always believed that diversity is much deeper and much broader than just race and gender. So if we are to be truly inclusive, the acceptance of diverse mindsets is required. Those who think differently and perceive life in ways that are not the norm do have something to contribute to society and to humanity. So let's be open enough. Let's be courageous enough to accept and appreciate differences so that we can be genuinely inclusive. Then each of us can truly develop our individual skills and talents and share them with the world. So more of us can live in total health. To learn more about total health, Please visit glenalex.com, order your copy of my award-winning book, Living in Total Health, take advantage of the BOGA special, and book your complimentary consultation with me so you may live in total health. Then tune in to the next episode of The Glen Alex Show, the 2023 Positive Change Podcast Award winner. And until next time, be well.